Hi, Bill.
Hello, Linda.
How we doing?
Good. How are you?
I've got a headache.
Do you have a busy day?
Yes, we gave over 500 shots today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a long day. Just to give you a heads up, if my headache turns into a migraine, I might just hand it over to you.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Michelle. How you doing? Hi, Gary.
Good evening. Good evening. How is everyone?
Good.
How are you?
Not too bad, all things considered.
I know. Driving in the snow this morning wasn't fun.
I woke up and looked out the window and I was like, man, if I could just go back to bed.
I know. Well, we had our vaccine clinic at Delavan. So, of course, it's through the snow belt.
Right.
That was fun.
I can imagine.
But it was for a good reason.
Danny, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and
Okay.
clear.
Okay, we have a few minutes before everybody else jumps on.
Did my email by chance make it through?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Anybody else coming tonight?
John should be signing on. And usually Charlene comes on. At 6:30. Bill, is anybody else?
Yeah, Chris Brown is just, he'll be coming in here in a second.
Okay.
There's Chris.
Hi, Chris.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, I text John to see if he's going to be coming. Sometimes he runs a little late because of the kids. Bill, is Bob going to be on tonight?
I thought he was. Yeah, I talked to him earlier today. He said he would be.
And I'm just going to apologize in advance. My dog has gotten sick a couple times since I got home today. So if you,
Aw.
I might exit the screen for a minute.
We'll let you.
Thank you.
What kind of dog do you have?
He's a mutt,
I have one of those too.
a good old pup from the SPCA.
Yep. Hey, mine's Chihuahua and Beagle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a cutie. Well, how about while we're waiting to see if Bob and John come on? Did everybody receive Gary's email? Basically about going back to in person.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so how about if we just kick off tonight's meeting with kind of get everybody's input on that? I know I talked to John about it and we were going to bring it up, but Gary, if you want to just kind of run down, I see some of your reasonings and some of them make a lot of sense. So if you just want to run down them for us.
Yeah, no, of course, I appreciate that. I, you know, and want to preface by saying, you know, I'm definitely not saying that it's not wanted or welcomed. I just think it's important for us to not go backwards with some of the progress that we've made. I think for myself personally, this is one of the most engaged periods of time I've seen people in the city when it comes to city politics and what's going on. And I think that's outstanding. I know a lot of people that just because of their work schedule can't physically attend the council meetings or the public hearings, but they're able to step outside for a moment, you know, and, you know, whether it's an hour or so on their lunch break or whatever the case may be, instead of having to try to travel back and forth and miss time and that type of thing, and have been able to participate. So I think it's important for us to continue to maintain that. You know, and to maintain that level of engagement and inclusion. I think that by creating a circumstance or going backwards to where we only allow public comment if they're physically in person, we've automatically cut out groups of people from having a voice. people that, from an economic status, or, they don't have transportation to get back and forth to the council meetings or the public hearings, whether it be because of a work schedule, but they still can, on their job, their employer will still allow them to participate because they're not losing large chunks of time, traveling back and forth. And then you have the other aspect, people that may have some type of medical condition or physical disability that hinders them from being able to travel back and forth or physically attend, that have now been able to participate. And so I think it's great that, like, the meeting from last night still got posted, but it got posted after the fact, which was a little disheartening for me. I know my work schedule prevented me from physically being able to attend. I had looked forward to being able to, as usual, be able to pull it up. And I know the agenda said that we were going back in person, but I still thought that opportunity would be there. I didn't think we would cancel that opportunity out. And I think by removing that opportunity, we open the door for a lot of questions that really aren't necessary. And we're creating an atmosphere politically within the municipality where we are welcoming and we are fostering more inclusion and more diversity and wanting to hear from the people. And if we remove that ability, then the question becomes, do you really want to hear from us? Do you really want to hear what we have to say if you're limiting the people that are able to participate? And, I think that calls a lot of things into question. I think that it forces another level of accountability and transparency. And I think it's been a good thing. I think it's been a very good thing over the course of the last year. Again, questions are asked, and if nothing else, answers may not come as quickly or as forthcoming as people may expect or want, based on multiple variables. And I understand that, but the fact that the topic is still front of mind and it's able to continue instead of just kind of being pushed to the back burner. If it's important to the people should be able to express that. And I think by removing that, then we have to ask the question, are we truly trying to create a diverse and inclusive and a welcoming environment within the city and the direction the city's going, or are we trying to maintain a status quo or what's comfortable? And so that was just a concern of mine. Again, I'm not privy to everything that, every conversation that takes place, but I just thought it was important to, especially, like I said, seeing the meeting being posted after the fact instead of a live streaming like it normally has been. And it's not complicated. I mean, you think you got 10, 11, 12-year-olds that, can stream and interact with people. And so for the municipality to, maybe we can do this and do it. Now, listen, it can be figured out if a 10-year-old can figure out how to do this, and, so there's that aspect too. So again, like I said, it was just a little disheartening. I know there wasn't an opportunity for public comment from what I understand from the agenda from last night. But even if there was, unless you were physically there, you wouldn't have been able to participate. And, like myself, my work schedule prevented me from attending yesterday. So that, and not only that, but I know people that physically wouldn't have been able to attend based on disabilities that they have. So I just felt it was important that we recognize, acknowledge it, and talk about it.
I agree. I think it's real simple. I think it boils down to two things: technology and us catching up with technology and allowing people to participate. It's that simple. You don't need any further explanation than that. We have the technology, we need to use it, and that allows people to participate.
So Bill, since they're saying this about like being able to live stream and comment public comments, is it just something that needs to be worked out, or is it something different with the Zoom? Like, what's the deal?
Well, John has been going back and forth, and John's on now. John's been going back and forth with Comcast, and I believe we're going to get it worked out.
Okay.
John, is that accurate?
Yeah, as far as live streaming, using Boxcast for live streaming the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I've hooked up the program manager. The company we use is called Boxcast, and it's really, I guess it's from what my conversation with Jason, our IT guy guru, it's fairly easy live streaming when we're using Zoom, but not when we're using Boxcast. And so I reached out to the program manager who gave me, they reach out every so often, say, how's everything going? So now that we're back to using Boxcast, I said, we've got some bugs that we need to work out to try to get live streaming of our meetings. So that's, I've hooked those two up, and so hopefully we can figure that out.
Jason
Yeah,
was,
it really shouldn't be, whether it's with Boxcast, whether you continue just recording it yourself with Zoom. I mean, from a technology standpoint, it's not complicated. Like I said, there's 10-year-olds that, run around technology with their eyes closed. So, I mean, it's not that complicated to make happen. It's just a matter of making it happen. So I understand that. I think it's important that we maintain the engagement that we have of the population here in Olean. I think it's important to continue to give them that opportunity.
but
So just as a follow-up to that, and I'm sorry that I'm running late here, guys. So Gary, are you referring to our this meeting here, or are you referring to the council meetings?
Primarily the council meetings where individuals are involved with, public comment aspect. I mean, I'm all for every level of transparency. So if it's not an executive session, I've got no problem with it being live streamed and people, even council meetings where there's not public, comment, being able to live stream those, because of various situations, people are prevented from physically attending, but still want to be actively engaged. And I think we've seen that over the last year. So that's kind of where I'm at, and by no means was the email meant to sound as if nobody wants that to happen. It was just to point out various aspects, like if we don't continue to move in this direction, these are different things that we need to take into consideration as far as the perception is concerned.
Yeah, and you've got to understand, I mean, I worked with Bill to lead that charge to get us live streaming our our meetings. I mean, we're going to have hiccups. We're back in person. We'll work those bugs out, but I want transparency and live streaming just as much as anybody else. So that's something that literally I've got an email chain today that I sent off between, just try to get everybody to sit down and figure out what needs to get done. But that's a priority for us. Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because like I said, not saying that nobody wants it. I just felt that it was important that, that it was discussed and acknowledged, like, hey, is this something we're going to maintain and continue? And here's the reasons why, type of thing. So that's definitely encouraging that the thought process is there and that we're moving in that direction.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I appreciate that.
yeah, I think that's our goal, to get to that point. And we're working, Jason Wells, who takes care of that aspect of our IT, was off today, so he will get with the Comcast tomorrow and get this figured out.
And to his credit too, I mean, even though he was off today, he responded to 2 or 3 different emails back and forth with the individual from the company we partner with. So
Awesome.
yep, it's definitely a priority for us too.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And sorry, guys, I got kicked out for some reason, but I'm back. Does anybody else have any input as far as, and I guess, and you might have mentioned this, as far as our committee going live, going back, we never were, but at some point, do you want to do in-person meetings for our committee? I know we were just talking about the council's meeting, but what about our meetings?
I'll be honest, I'll speak up, Linda. I'll be honest. I don't think this is a bad format. If it gets to a point where we're able to, or we feel the need that we need to meet in person, but we all juggle a lot in our lives as it is. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
do want to make, this is a priority for us. But this does make it convenient in a working session, a working group like this. We're a small enough committee.
Yeah.
I don't feel that this hinders our conversation at all. So I'm fine with this for the time being,
I
personally.
agree.
I agree.
I think everybody's on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking we'd all start meeting at Union Whiskey. I don't know.
I thought we would meet down at Danny's place in Florida. That's what, I thought that's what,
My
You
son's
see-
been rubbing in the Florida weather all day.
See a lot of that, either way works. Either way works, we can do anything.
After driving to Delavan today, I'm off of Florida. That was a fun trip. Okay, so we discussed the meetings. That's what we kicked off with, John. So you didn't miss anything. One of the other things I think we should touch on tonight, as far as the questions that we reviewed last time, are we at a point where, I know we had some questions about the one page of the county survey, if we were going to condense it, add it, take it out. Does anybody have any questions or any suggestions on what they want to do with those questions? Or are you happy with them the way they are?
I'm just trying to find the list, so I'm not.
That's
ignoring
okay.
you guys, I'm just trying to, because I know I was kind of the keeper of those, so I'm just trying to find that list of questions if you guys want to.
Sure. Because I know at one point we were looking at the one page where they had a, let's see, I have it right here. I think it was question number 6, where it talked about childcare, dental care, healthcare, safety, affordable housing, crime prevention, senior citizens, that whole litany of topics. And we had discussed maybe either downsizing that or doing something different. So I just wanted to touch base and see if we feel that we've touched on enough as far as the questions and want to move on to making up that survey.
I thought we were waiting on some stuff from Bob Ring. I could be
He
mistaken.
sent it.
He
Yeah.
sent it.
He sent
Did he?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he sent it.
It-
That's why I was hoping he was going to be here tonight, but he did send it
He,
to us.
he probably did send it. I don't know. I see a lot of emails every day, so.
He sent it the day after our meeting.
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. He sent it in graph form. They were the
Mhm.
graphs.
On the 8th.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Yep, I remember now. They were the graphs. That was Bob. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the connection.
You just see so many, they all run together.
So,
And I'll say sorry in advance to Bob. Bob, you sent him. Thanks.
He sometimes runs a little late putting the kids to bed, but I'm gonna text him and see if he's gonna get on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pull up that he sent here, so that will,
Okay.
Bob's survey fellow. All right. Okay, so do you want me to, so it probably would be better if he spoke to these, but I can, I have them, I'm happy to pull them up.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah,
just-
we can at least start looking at them, and if he comes in, then we'll let him chime in.
I just text him. We'll see if he replies.
So I think I think what he did here was, okay. So survey development. So he had conducted public outreach on one of the walkable Olean projects. So from one area, he was asking to have the community members rank their priorities as far as physical improvements, obviously. So, ideas for events and activities along Union Street. Everyone, obviously, I'm not going to go ahead and read through. You guys can kind of read some of the items yourselves. And the initial questions were just something as simple as ranking 1 to 4, the most, what their favorite or their least favorite as far as the Olean's future development, whether it's creating a traffic calming streetscape, supporting community health and recreation opportunity, more connected neighborhoods, or family-friendly events. I like the. I mean, I like the fact that they include pictures. I mean, that's definitely helpful. And then I guess what they did here was then expand into that second kind of listing of priorities. So I wonder if there's maybe a way. I did find the diversity survey that we were working on last time. Maybe there's a way to integrate those sorts of concepts maybe into a listing of or rating of I don't know, services or resources, or even in this last question, I guess, what would you like to see in Olean?
Bob's getting in now, guys.
Okay.
I guess that's where we were thinking maybe we could integrate some of that.
Right. Maybe touch on some of his results to what the top 4 to 6 things were, and incorporate those top choices into questions in our survey. Are you there, Bob?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I
Oh, you're fine.
had a workout go late, so.
Now, we're just looking at your graph as far as the survey, and we're trying to link it with our questions. And John had brought up your graphs and pictures, and then we pop back to our original questions.
Oh, great. Yeah, what did you think about the surveys overall?
I thought they were good.
Not a ton of participation, but that's kind of what you count on if you go to a couple events. 50 people.
So what do we have here as far as what the results? Oh, I see. So you've got, just trying to look. So number 1 priority is red. It's not working for me. Here, let me pull this up in a different way. If I do that, there. That should be better.
I apologize if it looks like I keep looking away from the screen. I've got them up on my other monitor as well, so I'm trying to keep up with them.
Here we go.
So this was some of the feedback then, some of the data results. Community health, community recreation certainly seemed to be quite favorable, as did our public realm and family-friendly events seem to be kind of, which is, I mean, let's face it, that's what I think we would expect in a small community like Olean. I mean, we are very community and family friend centric.
True.
As far as some of the additional physical improvements, red is the #1 priority. Oh, that's interesting. A lot of emphasis on enhanced crosswalks, huh, Bob?
Yeah, and I know you and Linda can attest to that with, a lot of RFPs and things like that, so.
And it kind of goes along with, our walkability to make it safe to walk. And then when you look at #2 is benches and places to sit, kind of goes with getting out there, keeping healthy. So that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, let's see here, additional physical improvements. Oh, I guess it looks kind of the same. Okay. So is there something that we could either cherry pick from this, maybe change it a little?
I'm wondering for that, like question 6 or 7, if using some of the things like the strategy that Bob used by just like having a succinct list of services and saying like which one rank the importance for an investment.
Kind of have a route laid out, so to speak, as far as those list of things, so people are kind of focused in answering the question, that type of approach.
Right.
And then maybe leaving an opportunity for them to add something that might not be on the list that we didn't consider.
Like add a comment section.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's everyone else feel about that?
I agree.
I agree. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too. And I think some of the information that Bob brought in from his graph that he sent us, it really makes you kind of look at where people's heads are, and it seems to go back to doing things with the family, having places to go and being safe. That seems to be the upper priorities for them.
I agree. I think it looks good, Bob, and I think you would help us see what type of data we could get out if we did it that way. And that's important, I think, for us to be an end product of something that was already done. So thank you.
So Chris, I'm sorry I missed some of that. Could you repeat what you said? Are you suggesting that we use the same approach, like with a ranking system?
That was my suggestion, and maybe we just take, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those services from the cat community action, the 5 or 6 that we think are the ones that we really want feedback about, and ask people to rank what are the top 3 that you'd like to see expanded. I don't know if that's the right exact question there, but
is everyone on board with that? Is that ultimately what we're trying to
Yeah, I think everybody agreed with a ranking system, whether it's one of, you have 5 things or 10 things or whatever, but rank them, of importance to you from 1 to whatever, and we'll collect the data the same way Bob did.
Okay. Based on that, kind of looking at what services or resources, right? So what we're trying to find out here with question 6 is how well are, and we can pull that list from community action, right? The different services and resources, how well are those needs being met in Olean, and then what would you like to see improved on? So what are your priorities out of that list? Just
Yeah,
so
and
as
then
I,
rank
okay,
them.
all right, I'm just.
And then at the very bottom, have a place for additional comments.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think sometimes we may make an assumption what's important and completely miss the boat, you know, based on our own experiences or whatever. And sometimes that can be detrimental if we're not careful.
Right. You know, that's true, Gary, because I think sometimes like with John and myself, being on a council, we're kind of looking at things a little differently than community members. So I think definitely have them have an opportunity to say, well, none of these apply to me, but this is how I feel, or this is what I'd like to see. So I think that's an important point.
I'll clean this up later.
Okay, so now if we've sort of narrowed our questions down, the next step is to do the final. But the other thing that I think we have to think about is where do we want to, or who do we want to give these surveys to? You know, are there certain places that we want to go, or certain population we want to target? You know, we've talked a lot about the questions, but who are we trying to target? Because we're not going to just send this out to everybody that lives in the community.
No, but I thought we went over this and we were talking about the elderly, the disabled, any minority populations, going into neighborhoods where they're pride up, or you know,
yeah, I just think we have to narrow it down more.
I guess why don't we send it to everybody? I guess, is that even possible? Don't you want, you know, the biggest? I mean, you want to target obviously the people's whose opinion you're looking for, but that's really anybody who feels this topic is important, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
No, I'm with you, Bob. I think as many people in the city, as many people that we can get in the city should take the survey. They're all stakeholders.
And you just got to find the methods. And I mean, Facebook's great, but then anybody from anywhere you can do advertisements that target only in residents, but
right.
So I remember we originally talked about actually physically going to the different communities to address, especially, you know, because some communities may or may not have access to internet, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, is there a way that we can essentially blanket the city, but still dial in on certain neighborhoods or certain areas, or, you know, whatever the case may be, to make sure we're not missing anybody?
Interesting question.
Or that's what we talked about. Maybe I dreamt that up in my sleep, but I could have swore we talked about people taking different parts of the neighborhood because in going to give the surveys out. But
well, we talked about that, and we talked about places like the warming house, the food pantry, different areas. But I was just thinking, do we want to broaden it like Bob just suggested, or do we want to keep it narrow to certain folks? You know, in the past, we've sent things out in mass. We've put it on the back of the water bill, and most everybody gets a water and sewer bill. But at the same time, not everybody pays water and sewer, so they wouldn't get it. And those are the very people we want to get it. So it's, I don't know. It's, I guess that's why I'm asking.
Well, I personally am like, I'm really not a knock on the door kind of person. It's just not my comfort zone, and it's just not something I quite honestly want to do. Because I don't know what people do in their houses, in their homes, and yeah, that's not my thing. But if that's what the team decides to do, I'll do it. It's probably not going to kill me by any stretch. But I was thinking of setting up, having a time and advertise it in advance, and we have a set up at Warvets Park and invite the community to come out, and each of us be able to man an area with the same questions and see if we can get community involvement that way.
One
Now,
of the
usually,
things,
usually
I'm sorry.
people don't want to do stuff if you're not going to feed them, but
Right.
one of the things we could do is, we have the farmer's market is going to be started up here. And, we could
Mhm.
set up in a few times or as many times as you feel is necessary at the farmer's market. That's where we did some of the surveys that Bob was talking about in, in Lincoln Park. Now, we'd have to spend some time, set up a table and have the stuff there. The other thing we can do, I know it has been mentioned a couple of times, and maybe Survey Monkey, and that may get out to a large portion of the population here, and we could utilize Greater Olean area, the Chamber of Commerce. They have a very broad email base that they get out to every, all of the businesses, the factories and all that there. So that's just a couple of thoughts, to get at to get it out that way. Now,
Here-
I think in order for us to really capitalize, we have to look at various ways.
Yeah,
of
a multitude of
various
ways.
avenues,
I-
yeah, because
I agree. I was going to say
Not-
that.
not everybody's got the, access to email for whatever reason. Not everybody's going to come out to the farmer's market. Not everybody wants people knocking on their door. So we have to try to, okay, how can we encompass as many people as possible the most effective way? So I think we'll have to look at doing a few different, approaches, taking a couple avenues of approach.
And that's what I was about to say too. I think every approach that everybody brought up is a good approach and we should use it and we should use them all. So, I just think let's do them all. There's not a bad approach.
One of the
true.
other things that we could add to this list is getting responses from the local college students,
Mhm.
whether it's at Bonas or JCC. And obviously on the Bonas side, I'll take ownership of that. But getting in and seeing what some of our younger community members, even if they're temporary community members, are feeling in the community.
That's true. Sometimes the people that are from the outside that come here have a totally different perception of services, what they like, what they don't like. That would be an interesting feedback.
Yes, Chris, I agree. I think we talked about that when we first started this. That's a key population.
I'll take ownership for the farmer's market. We just have to be clear with me about, is it 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and is it from 10 to 2 or whatever, but I'll own that since I don't want to knock on doors.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. So we have a lot of good ideas for that. The other thing that before we move on, I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight was the email that Charlene sent out about the Kevin Doherty situation. And I think a couple of the things that as a committee, I think it would be totally appropriate for us to say how we feel about what he said. But the other thing that I think the committee has to realize is the council doesn't hire and fire people. And I do believe Mary Elio has our city attorney looking into this, what the appropriate thing would be. And maybe Bill can speak on that. But I just think maybe we should take the next 15, 20 minutes and just kind of talk about this, because I think it's something that, touches our committee. And I think if we're going to have a diversity and inclusion committee, we need to talk about it.
I agree. And I think that we talked a little bit about this committee possibly looking at a social media policy that we can present to the Common Council. And I believe that John might have asked for some feedback on that. I don't know. Did I send you one or two, John? I can't remember.
Yeah, you did, Dan, and I was gonna bring that up at some point in time. I know we're loading ourselves up with, different projects, but you're right. I mean, you sent that to me, I asked for it, and so that is something that if we want to consider looking into a social media policy.
So I know that's one thing that we talked about this committee,
Yeah.
being able to participate in that, right? But I think just from a community member standpoint, since you want to talk about it, I find it very disheartening as we put this diversity committee together and we're looking at making the city more diverse or trying to, that these things go on with the city employees. And I'm not saying that they're allowed to go on, and I'm not saying that there's nothing to be done about it, because I don't know that. But just the fact that they're out there, and that's the perception, and perception is reality, that how can we move the city forward when this is what's going on? And hopefully, I'm hoping at the end of this that there is going to be a resolution to this. And we will see what that resolution is, but I hope that it's a well thought out resolution that involves consideration that we're trying to be more diverse, consideration that we're trying to bring more people here, and that all them things are considered. And that's personally what I'm watching for, is how is that going to end? Not that it happened, but how's it going to end?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's why I originally had sent the email, because it really did bother me. And I don't know, some of you may know, I do teach one of his children, and I set all that aside and I'm still professional. And as a teacher and an educator, we have been told to be careful as to what you put on social media. So, and I still feel like that's the same for city employees, because the taxpayers are paying their salaries, like the taxpayers pay my salary. So I feel like we will work together to get a resolution to this, to get a policy, and like we probably should look at other policies too, to make sure everything is covered, because then maybe if we have those policies, something like this happens again, something can be done with the situation.
I think you look at, pretty much any business now. I know the industries that I've worked in, they have social media policies. I mean, I pulled up and saved several for when we start to begin working on them. Some are vague and generalized, and some are very detailed. I know some companies I've worked with in the past, your job essentially is on the line, because you don't not only represent the company that you get your paycheck from, but you represent every company that particular company represents in that industry. And, I think one of the things that was extremely disheartening for me is the behavior that took place over the summer, that, essentially attacking local businesses was essentially allowed to continue, other comments that were allowed to continue. So in this particular case, there's a history here. And it was ultimately not really paid attention to when you look at the next step in bringing him on board. You already know what these types of things that are coming to the table. And, at some point, the community, and the leadership has allowed it and not addressed it. I mean, if we don't address it somehow, whether via policy or, however, whatever that looks like, you just leave yourself open for more of that. And it definitely does not accomplish the goals that we set forth as this committee when we first came together. And so I definitely think it definitely does need to be addressed. And I don't think that those types of things are a good representation of what this city's about.
No, I agree with you, Gary. I think in the past, this individual has had people speak to him about his behavior, and it really didn't change it. And I don't think you're going to change him. He
Right.
just.
Right. And there's
does.
multiple individuals. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, when you really look at it, you can't just attack a topic like this based on one individual, and just dial in that way. It's got to be approached from a broader spectrum as well. And, unless there's some type of teeth you know, and with, you know, Miss Charlene's, you know, most recent email and what she was saying in there, I mean, unless I'm incorrect and I misread it, you know, unless there's some type of action that takes place when somebody acts like this, then, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you're just spitting words.
And the behavior will continue.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There's got to be something to counter the behavior. You know, I mean, if my son growing up, if I constantly say, hey, don't do that, but I let him get away with it every time, you know, he knows nothing's going to happen. So he's going to keep doing whatever he's going to do.
Right. Oh, every mother and father knows that.
And I don't necessarily agree with writing policies, procedures, practices, whatever you want to call them, based on one person's actions. But I think that, you know, with Kevin bringing this to the forefront, we can talk about him in general. But like Gary said, there's multitudes of examples out there of employees that work for the city that do these things, and I think that's where we got to talk about our policy is what social media policy is good for the city. What's the end result? One of Charlene's point, you know, what is the end result? What are we looking for? How are we going to handle this in the future? And what are the consequences? Let's here to use that word. What are the consequences for your actions? And how are they carried out? And if we can't get there, if we're just writing a procedure to say step 1, step 2, step 3, or whatever, and it's never followed, you might as well not even write it. So, you know, I'll let everybody else talk. My feelings have been well documented on this particular subject.
But you know, for me, my glass is always half full. So as much as it's a real disappointment, and quite honestly, probably if I knew Kevin like that, I'd got him in the corner and said, "What the hell are you thinking, boy? You know, what's going on here?" Because to me, there's some kind of psychology going on in somebody's head to behave that way. But the good news for me is that as a committee, now we have an opportunity to define what we are and what we are not. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be faced with. And we have to, you know, make personal and collective decisions about, you know, this is where the rubber meets the road, because whether we signed up for it or not, this is not going to be a committee where we get to meet every week and talk a lot and not have anything happen. Right. So, you know, I don't know the policies and the way things are done. I don't think the city of Olean has a lot of, you know, formalized policies in place, but this is the opportunity to start looking at those things and saying, wow, as a community, like we didn't even know we had a devil out there, but now we do. What are we going to do about it? And, you know, the individual, I mean, he'll, you know, like Linda or whoever just said, the behavior doesn't change. I mean, your character is your character. So,
you know, and one thing that for me that stands out about this is number one, the lack of policy, and you know, being involved in ministry. You know, if I'm working in a ministry, and I only have 100 people in that ministry, if I only operate as if I'm only ever going to be responsible for those 100 people, then when the 500 people walk through the door, I'll fall apart. And, you know, we're in a situation, we're talking about, we want to make Olean grow. We want to make Olean more welcoming and bring people in. If we don't establish ourselves correctly, like you were saying, Charlene, there's very few specific policies that I've seen looking at different things. And even our charter tends to be a little vague on many topics, you know, and this is our opportunity to really lay a foundation and build the framework and prepare for the future, as opposed to let's just ride the wave of what's comfortable and what we've always done. You know, at some point you have to evolve with what's going on and be able to move forward.
So let me just speak a moment to policy creation, you know, at the city level. And it's obviously social media is not that new. We know it's certainly been prominent now for almost going on a decade, right? But if you took a look at our city code and handbook and laws and rules, there's a lot there, and there are gaps, right? And this is one that has come up a number of times, and I'm not going to by any means make an excuse for the lack of policies. I think in my email I expressed to everyone, this is part of the purpose that I saw the diversity committee serving, is to look at our internal policies and make recommendations and say, hey, here's a hole, we can fix that. And I'm a policy guy. So I think this is a huge opportunity for us and I'm thrilled to fill that gap, because you're absolutely right, Gary and Danny. Organizations today, and Michelle, what an employee does online reflects on an organization, and you're just as responsible for what you do or say online as you do or say in person at work. And so, again, I want to turn this, into an opportunity, and I wanted to also put out there that, being an alderman, the aldermen are responsible alongside the mayor and department heads to create policy. And that's the other challenge of it is, we're part-time people. We're, the aldermen serve, a handful of hours a week. And we have to work alongside the mayor to put these policies in place, and then get the buy-in from the department heads. Nothing happens quickly, unfortunately, in government, but I do want to just keep going back to this is ours to take and run with it. And so I'm 100% behind it. It's long overdue, and I do think this is a great opportunity for us to just get a social media policy in place.
Definitely.
And I feel like we eventually down the road would be looking at stuff like this, but this current recent event and his behavior has created us to do this now, because I'm sure there are a lot of policies that we need to implement just because times are changing, things are changing. I mean, I deal with it at school all the time. There's always some new thing that has happened in somewhere else that's come out, and then a policy goes in place, and then, we have training on it, we have to sign off on it. So I feel like this would have been one of our jobs, but he kind of just helped us put it up as a priority. So.
And I agree,
That's true.
Michelle. I think eventually we'll get there. We'll look at policies. This one just kind of skates to the front because of the situation. But I mean, and I agree with John too. Like this should be what we're doing, and we should be writing policies for the growth of the city and where we're headed. But let's not skirt around the fact that we knew what we were getting when we gave him the job. This wasn't a secret. So, like, we knew who we were hiring. But moving forward, let's just fix the situation. But ultimately, everybody's watching the outcome. They want to see where it's going to go. It hasn't gone anywhere. Everybody's still looking at it, but let's do our part, write the policy. That should, to me, that's job number one for us. That we should be working on that. We should be working on that like immediately, because it's still going on. It hasn't stopped. So
Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
It's still going on. It hasn't stopped. So the only way to rectify the situation is to put policy, procedure, whatever we want to call them, in place, right? So I think that's something that we should be able to accomplish as a committee, 99% outside of a committee meeting. If you have a skeleton of a social media policy that everybody can add to as they go throughout 2 weeks, when we come back here in 2 weeks, we should have 90% of a social media policy done. And it should just be reviewed, right? And tightened up and everything else, and then let it go through its chain of approval process. But to sit here and say that we're going to hammer out a social media policy as we meet, that's not a productive use of our time. We should be reviewing almost a finished use of almost a finished social media policy that we all participated in online and getting it to the Common Council as soon as possible. That's my thing. I mean,
And I think
we spent 3 weeks on a survey.
I think we also have an opportunity to go beyond a social media policy. Because like from the policies at the very beginning of our meetings, like Bill, you sent out all of the city's policies, and there really isn't a discrimination, harassment, and bias policy. Like there's a sexual harassment policy, which is a good thing, but there isn't it doesn't encompass other identities and other forms of bias and other forms of harassment. So I think like if we're going to look at a policy level, I think we can do both of these things. Like, yes, like a social media policy is necessary, but fleshing out a bias or harassment policy can also cover these things no matter where it occurs, whether it's on social media, in the office, in a city vehicle, whatever. Like I think we can do a lot on this policy front to bring the city up to more current standards.
So
And, you know,
I
we-
have a question.
Okay.
And Bill, maybe this is something you can answer. Do city employees receive sensitivity training or training about discrimination, anything like that? I know the school district does not have anything, and that's one of my goals that I'm working on. But so the old Michelle would have been all over him about that because I've dealt with racism all my life. And I'm to the point now where I'm fed up with it. It's in this area. People think it's not in this area. I work with people who say racism doesn't exist. And unless you have dealt with it, you can't say that. So I'm very passionate about this. So like, I think employees should have sensitivity training. Like every year I have to do bloodborne pathogens, sexual harassment, all those trainings, and I have to sign off on a certain day, the technology policy, all that stuff. So why not have diversity? Something that acknowledges, oh, you know what? I did get that training, because somebody who could turn around and possibly sue over something like this, because it's a very sensitive situation. So why do we have anything like that in place just to cover, you know, the city's butt? Because I mean, like I feel like this is a serious situation, and all employers need to like get a handle on this and get something in place to protect.
Your answer, yes, you're absolutely right. We're lacking, and that's one of the reasons I believe this committee was formed, to take a look at and see what we need to improve on and move forward. So these are some of the things that we need to do.
But do they do sensitivity training? That was my question. Like, is there something?
There's some programs in like the fire department, the police department. I'm not sure if DPW does any sensitivity, but like I said, that's where we're moving towards. We need to, and that's one of the things that this committee has been doing so far, has been identifying where we're lacking and what we can do better. And these are the things that we have to take the advice of this committee and move forward. We've been kind of jumping around. And, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked about, our harassment policy and that, and how it lacked things. We started talking about that, then we kind of got away from that. So we need to focus back and
Well, you're right, Bill, but I think with what he did on social media, and I'm not friends with him on social media. However, people who are my friend were like offended by it and sent it to me. And I cooled down for a couple of days before I said anything. So we have jumped all over the place, but now maybe this should be a priority then, because this is a serious situation. I took offense to it. It was insensitive. As a person of color, a teacher, and a taxpayer, still very upset by it. And when you say there's sensitivity training for the fire department and all the other departments, what does that entail? Do they have somebody that comes in to speak to them, or are they at a computer doing something from the employee assistant program? Because we get stuff like that at school. So
Yeah,
I feel like, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I just feel like they need to hear it from somebody, like what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's offensive. And then maybe after that happens, then you could go to like a computer-based program or something. But I feel like they need to have somebody come in and speak about racism and what's offensive and what you can and cannot say, despite how you may feel. And like I tell everybody I work with, I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to teach the kids, but I'm also not going to be disrespected. So, and that's what people need to know. And they need to know that they want to be treated just like everybody else. So, I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts about if it's something that like we need to have somebody come in and speak up on it, or?
I agree. I think having someone actually speak, deliver, especially someone that's had the experiences, it takes it to a different level. It makes it more tangible for the audience. Whereas sitting in front of a computer, I mean, for the purpose of checking a box, okay, yeah, fine, that works. But for the purpose of actually making a difference and making an effective change, it's got to be more than just a check in a box. And when stuff like this happens, if you're silent on this type of incident, you might as well just say you condone it, because you're just not even addressing it, pretending it'll go away, and it's not going to help any either. And so there's got to be that this is not okay. And I think you're right. Having someone come in and actually lead that training, as opposed to a check in a box, to me, I feel is more impactful than just putting them in front of a computer. Because most people, whether we're telling the truth or not, when you sit in front of the computer and got to take your little, even if it's timed, you just kind of blow through it. As soon as you can click next, you click next on that slide.
Right.
And
I agree.
They're generally easy, common sense questions, because the company doesn't want to have you being non-productive for any amount of time. So they make it extremely easy for you to check the box and move on. That's not effective.
Well, Chris, you may understand what I'm about to say, because you guys probably go through this at Bonus. I'm trying to get to the end product here, right? Because we can talk about all this stuff, but training is training, right? You can train anybody. But training doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to do what they're supposed to do. You could have, let's speak about Kevin in particular, since his name keeps coming up as well as it should. You could have trained him for every year he sat on a common council, plus this year right here, and he wouldn't have learned a thing.
But the training was
that's not my point, though.
Accountable. There's a difference there.
That's right. That's my point. We're never going to
hold you accountable. If you guys would have let me finish, I was going to get there.
Well, I'll get there, because
you could have held them accountable.
734.
But you could have held them accountable to the piece of paper. So ultimately, it boils down to policy. And that's where we're trying to get to, is a social media policy, a social media and different types of policy. So we're not going to do that here.
I would just like to say that I had the privilege and opportunity to be a co-facilitator, a lead trainer for the City of Austin's leadership team, and to teach diversity. And I'm wondering if we can't, when we get there, take that information and a team of us, our committee, revamp it, and we be our trainers. Yeah, you're not going to change people like Kevin, their behavior, that's internal. But like Michelle is saying, You have to give people an activity. They have to be able to touch it and feel it. And one of the questions that we use to try to help people connect with it is, what is the one thing that you never want to hear said about you again? Because everybody's got something that somebody says ugly things about them. And so anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, that we can be our own diversity training committee if we, you know,
And those
get there
trainings can
enough
be
to do
written
that.
into the policy.
I didn't hear you.
Pardon?
I said those trainings, the requirement of those trainings can be written into the policy. It's a
Right.
cohesive, it's a
Mhm.
cohesive process. It's not one or the other or
No.
one against the other. They've got to work together. Because you can put the policy there, but then if you don't effectively roll the policy out, ultimately the goal is not just check the box, it's to change. It's to bring
Right.
about change. And, you know, I think all of us can say we give our time, whether it's, you know, on the actual meeting or throughout the weeks in between the meetings, we give our time because we want to see change. We want to see growth and we want to see change.
So
But I
unfortunate
think,
thing- oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Chris. I can wait.
The unfortunate thing is, in a lot of the research, especially around HR type trainings, is like how like that they're very ineffective in producing change. But they can be very effective in saying these are the standards, right? And
Mhm.
whether or not like you have a change in your heart, honestly, I might not care.
Right.
Like I want that. That's awesome if it happens, right? But if you know like what is expected and what is harmful, right? And you can lay out that framework, right? Then that can affect the behavior in the workplace, even if it doesn't change someone's. I don't want to sound taggy, but even if it doesn't change someone's like heart or motivations or soul or
Right.
anything like
No,
that. Like,
exactly.
Right. I think one of the things I wanted to say to that is, I think John touched on it, and I think the mayor knows where I'm going to go. If you don't have something that you can hold an employee accountable, for instance, if you do the training, if you have the in-service where you have to sit there and listen and you've signed that paper, then you can hold that person accountable for what they say or what they do. But if you don't have that, you can't. And I think it's even more obvious to us that work within the city. It's even harder because we don't have the updated policies. We're working on them, but I think it's really hard. The other thing that you have to factor in is, you know, there's always that level of protection. There's always someone that's going to say, well, you know, I have the right to say whatever I want to say, which, you know, that kind of covers a lot of things, but it doesn't mean anything personally. And I think unless you have that paperwork to show that this person has taken the training or has read the policy
Right.
or taken the steps, just like in the school system.
Mhm.
When I went back to work for the county to do vaccines, I had to take all kinds of policy procedures and you know, check off all the little boxes. So if something happens, they can come back and say, well, Linda, you took this and you signed this, so you're accountable. And I think until you get to that point, I think we're just kind of spinning our wheels. So I think, you know, when we talk about policies, there's tons of policies out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
You know, just get a good one and go with it. Tweak it to fit the city.
Couldn't agree more. And it shouldn't take forever to get done. We should be able to get it done in 2 weeks. You should be on a council's desk in 2 weeks.
Yep. And I think, and I might be mistaken, but Mayor, have you talked to Jack about the situation, our city attorney?
I've talked to Jack, and I've also talked to the NICAM attorneys. So Jack does not feel that, you know, even though it was insensitive, it was cruel, it was obnoxious, that, you know, just posting that did not violate anything.
Because it didn't directly affect him. And I'm going to say this, and this is the last thing I'm going to say tonight. So although Kevin, we have a right to say whatever we want. I get that. But when he's in a position where he's a city worker, the taxpayers pay his salary, he needs to be a little bit more sensitive to people. So what he did say was like, that was insensitive to the Black community and anybody else who feels a certain way about what happened to George Floyd. The second thing is that I also have a right to be able to drive down the road in my vehicle and not be followed by a cop, not have my license plate called in. Because that just happened to me in the city of Olean probably 3 weeks ago. So my goal is to make change for this city. And I don't know what other way I can say it without getting frustrated and going off, so to speak, because I'm angry about it. I'm angry that I have to watch my back. And I was innocent going to my mom's house. And the cop turns around by the middle school, follows me all the way till we got to the bridge and he caught up to me. There were 3 cars behind me and ran my plate. It's not that I don't feel safe or I don't have a fear. I have a fear of how I'm going to react if I do get pulled over for some nonsense because I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't on my phone. Didn't have my music up like people drive by all over the place. Wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just a Black woman driving a nice car. And you can feel differently about this if you want, but because it's happened to me on more than one occasion in the city of Olean, it needs to stop because it makes me very angry and sad. Because it wouldn't happen to Linda, wouldn't happen to Gary, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, we got to make change and we need to start now. And I'm sorry that the lawyer didn't feel that was offensive. So I hope he never has to go to a city where he's the minority and has to deal with what myself as a woman of color deals with on a daily basis. In Olean, no matter, like, it's got to stop.
And I agree 100% with what Michelle says. And it happens. It's been happening here for years. It's been happening here way too long. And I think that's why we're all here to make change. And if the lawyer doesn't think that violated anybody's rights or that was behavior acceptable by a city employee, then maybe he should come here and explain to us how he came to that conclusion. Because
I don't want to hear that. Because that will make me even more angry, Danny.
But any logical person, right? Any logical, common sense person would look at that and say, that's offensive. In isn't what did you call it, Charlene, in your
Reasonable person standard.
Thank you. Reasonable person standard. Couldn't have said it better. If anybody said if that was a reasonable person standard, looking at that would say that that's offensive and that's racist.
Well, and as an attorney, I'm surprised he didn't have that same thought.
That's a little concerning, right? He's working.
Well, he was probably thinking in terms of disciplinary action.
Yeah.
Since we weren't there, we don't know his intent.
Right.
Is he talking about disciplinary action, Bill, or was he just saying in
I mean,
general?
in general, as a person, I hope he would think it was.
No.
Yeah.
The conversation was about bringing disciplinary action. Okay, and that's the same response I got from the NICOM. I talked to 2 NICOM attorneys, which is New York State Conference of Mayors, and the feeling there was also bringing disciplinary action.
And I would agree with them both because we don't have a policy to do that. But I also looked at Olean's code. I also looked at Olean's code of conduct, and I was shocked to see that the code of conduct doesn't address any behavior for an employee of the city.
Well, it's time for that to change.
So,
Yeah.
I encourage you guys to go out and look at other code of conducts of the city, of different cities, because it's in there. Like, and if it doesn't fall to a policy or procedure, usually it would have violated the city's code of conduct. So you're covered either way. If you don't have a specific policy, then you would be liable under the city's code of conduct for what you've done. And that's how they tied the two together. And I think these are the processes that we need to start looking at as a committee. Is you can't write a procedure and a process for everything. So how do we tie back to the most important policies and procedures, which are the city's code of conduct and things like that? And these are the things that like we really need to be talking about. These are the things that we really need to be focusing on. Because like Michelle said, this stuff is happening. Call it what you want.
And if we don't make change, we're not going to get young people to come back here. Because I'll tell you what, my kids don't want anything to do with coming back home to live here, because they're in a very diverse area. They're accepted. Like if stuff happens, it's not like blatant in their face like it is here. Like, I don't know.
Chris is in a very unique spot for us, and I'm gonna keep using you, Chris, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm gonna use y'all. All right. Chris, I've had the opportunity to talk to 3-4 groups of same amount of interest students for a variety of different things that have been going on around the city and things like that over the past year. And they have a very unique perspective. And if we can, their perspective is no different than our perspective, right? Michelle, if you sit down and talk to them, their experience here is exactly what we're talking about. So I think we need to engage them, because if you're not going to believe the people of the city, talk to somebody else that's just here for a little while and see what their experiences are.
Mhm.
And they're going to match or be very close to it. And Chris is in that spot where he can do that for us. He can get that information. I hope. I'm sorry, Chris, I'm throwing you under the bus. But he works in a place where that information is readily available to him. And if you're not going to listen to us, listen to a whole bunch of other people tell you the same thing. And you can only hear that for so long before it has to become reality. And I don't say that to put Olean down. I just say that to say, let's wake up. Let's fix it. Let's do something. That's why we're here.
Let's make Olean a beautiful place to be.
Yep. I think that the thing that, in my experience, the biggest issue with Olean is the residents that don't think there's a problem and don't like change. And those are the two things that hold us back. It really does.
Oftentimes a person wants to negate an experience because they've never had it. And you know, it's unfortunate that I would tell another person that personally experienced something, no, that's not what really happened. I mean, that's a real arrogant position to be in.
I just walk away now. I don't even try to explain.
At some point, you know, we do, you know, need to hammer down the policies and the training, so there is a level of accountability. And at some point, I'm sorry, but at some point the city's got to stop being quiet about this kind of behavior and has to take a stand on it, that it's not acceptable. You know, whatever manner that takes place at this point until there's something more concrete in place. But, you know, as a resident of Olean, and for there to be such silence on a lot of these issues, it's disheartening.
And I'm going to tell you, Linda, I appreciate you allowing us to talk about it here in an open forum that's going to go out in public, because
that's what we're here for.
But I appreciate it, because I don't know if the city's ever been this open to a conversation about it in an open forum and something that's going to be public. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate John for sitting here on this committee and listening to it. I appreciate Bill, and I appreciate Linda for actually opening the floor to the conversation. Bob, I appreciate you too. And I know you do a great job with your DPW workers, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate that you bring a whole nother level of somebody who hasn't worked in Olean and has worked somewhere else, and you bring that level to them. So I just appreciate having an open forum. This wouldn't have happened 2 years ago.
Yep.
And nobody needs to be offended by anything that was said. They need to listen and be open to change.
And I'm okay with people being offended.
Well, I mean, I just feel like I probably,
That's part of the
if
growth
I offended
process.
anybody, like, I'm just speaking the truth, but this does happen in our area. It happens in our schools. It happens with the police in the Black community. It happens when you go to the store. Like, people think I'm going to steal their purse. I don't want your purse. I got my own money. Don't want your stuff.
Money in my pocket than you got in your
Like,
purse.
we were somewhere, Vernon walked in somewhere, the little girl hid behind her dad. He doesn't want you either. Like, we're not harmful people. And that's what happens in our city. Like, even with kids being removed from my classroom because of the color of my skin, not okay, not okay. But you know what? I used to get upset about it. That's their child's loss, not my loss.
Right.
Because the kids that I have in my classroom, they love me and I embrace them. So.
And I agree, when it comes to change, people need to get real comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Sit and listen to the stories and then say, how can I help? I'm sorry, like, how can I help? What can we do to make this a positive thing? And I've had some of that happen at school with some people, and because they just don't know, or they were raised differently.
So are we willing to work on the social media policy in between now and the next meeting together as a group?
Yeah, hey Dan, let me just, Michelle, I'm glad you made that point, because I'm typically someone who talks, but I've been really quiet because this isn't something that I experience, and this isn't something that I'm an expert or know anything about. So there are times where it's my turn to listen and to say, this is where we need to get better. And yeah, how do we get better? How do we help this situation? Well, I mean, I take the low-hanging fruit, and yeah, I think, Danny, a social media policy is the low-hanging fruit at this juncture, and that's something that I believe the council will certainly support. So yes, that's at least for this time where we can start.
But I would also ask the city as a whole to look at their policy that I talked about earlier, about their other policy. I forget.
The code of conduct.
The code of conduct. Because that's going to tie up the loose ends to the things that we don't have policies for. And if it's in there and there's employee related things in there, it's going to give the other committees, because we're not the only committee in the world, right? It's going to give us, the other committees, the chance to assist in working through these things. So I don't know. I say we take the code of conduct, and I don't know what the best way to work on it outside of the meeting offline is, but I know we should be able to get it done in 2 weeks, whatever format that is.
And like you said, look at other cities, what they're saying, because like I said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, it is out there. We just have to accept that we have to embrace it into our community.
So go ahead, John.
I just was wondering, as far as, if there's a working document, maybe I could ask our IT guys to put it into like a Google box or whatever it's called, some Google Drive or something, and give all of us access. So we can each at our own leisure access the document, mark it up, make suggestions, and we can kind of see what our changes and comments are before the next meeting. So maybe we could do that.
Chris, I'm going to throw you back on the bus, but don't you always send stuff in Google Docs where you can mark them up?
I use Google Docs all the time, and I don't mind putting that up there.
That's what I thought. But it's a running working document that if you started an email thread, we could all just kind of work on it together.
Yep.
And that's all I was going to say. I was going to bring up what John just said. So.
And then present that at the next meeting and say, can we finalize this? Right.
Okay.
I don't care how we do it, whether it's Chris's, whether it's the city's, whether it's a Dropbox, whether I could care less. I just think
I don't care either. I mean, I don't care. I don't care. It matters not to me.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I can do that tonight if we want to.
Do you have one for us to start with, Chris? Because I sent one to John.
I have the PDF that you sent I thought to the whole committee.
Yeah, I did. Did I
Social
send it
media
to
policy.
committee?
Yeah, you sent it to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that can get, I mean, that's a PDF that can't be marked up, but I can copy and paste that into Google Docs and go from there.
Yeah, at least you have a skeleton and we can just add I think I sent the most basic one that I could find from a city government.
Mhm.
There's obviously ones that are more in-depth, pages long, but I don't think we need to go there, but who am I?
No,
Who we do?
no. Okay, so that sounds like a good goal for the next, and we're gonna go to 2 weeks, right? We're gonna stick with our 2-week meeting. So the next one, we just,
Hey,
May 5th.
yes. So May 5th at 6:30
Cinco
again.
de Mayo.
That's
You can
Cinco
go
de
for a drink after.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was on. But yeah.
Bill,
Cinco de
Bill,
Mayo.
that's the Union Whiskey meeting right there. Cinco de Mayo. You get your
We're
wish.
gonna have to go to the Mexican restaurant.
There you go.
They'll probably have a deal on margaritas, so.
There you go. We'll get
2 for
over.
1.
We have a new Mexican restaurant too that's on Union Street, so don't forget there.
We could bang out a lot of code of conduct. We could bang out a lot of code of conduct and social media policy over margarita.
All right.
Okay, guys, so we'll leave it that we're gonna watch for that document to come and we can all kind of mark it up. And those questions back to the survey, we can just put those together, get that finished and move on. But I think this is a priority right now, just from what all of us feel. Trust me, we've been in the position too, not nearly at the level at what the last comments were. But I think we need to do this and we need to keep moving forward.
Just, I will type all that stuff up. I'll pull in the Cat County or the Cat, whatever, the community action questions. I'll clean the survey stuff up and send it out to everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, guys,
Thanks,
see you in
everybody.
2 weeks.
Everybody have a great night. Thanks for the
Thanks for
conversation.
your input.
Good meeting.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation,
Take
guys.
care.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.